So my name is Taylor Navis. I am the coordinator of student organizations and the Office of Student Engagement. I use she, her pronouns, and I help advise the student organizations on campus and help them plan events. So I will be co-leading this presentation with one of our student workers. Want to introduce yourself, Wadea?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Wadir Tadros. I'm a junior here at Stanford, and I'm an OSE intern.
Great. So today we're going to go over how to request registrar scheduled classrooms. If for those of you who were officers last year and you utilized classroom spaces for your events, you may have noticed that the process has changed this year. So there is now a new way of requesting classrooms and a new way of noting that on Cardinal Engage. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we talk about the process, we want to first kind of define what the registrar's office is and its relationship to the Office of Student Engagement.
Yeah. So, what's the registrar's office? So, you can think of the registrar's office as like the manager for university classrooms. So, they manage 140 classrooms that VSOs can use free of cost. Those rooms are not available up until week three of the each respective quarter. That is due to like classroom scheduling for classes. But upon week three, events can start happening in those classroom. You can go ahead and book those. And um, in the case that you need to host an event in the first 2 weeks, we recommend you use a different venue. In terms of the differences between the OSE and the registrar's office, we do not manage the venues. We manage Cardinal Engage, we process and review all of your event submissions, and yeah, that's as far as our work goes. And we just have nothing to do with venues in terms of approving or speeding up or processing those. The registrar office, on the other hand, manages classrooms and the scheduling for that, the logistics for that, and they review and process your room requests for classrooms. We both work together to make all your VSO events happen in those classrooms.
Yes. So as Video was mentioning, it is suggested that if you are hosting an event in like the first 2 weeks of the quarter, that it's not in a registrar scheduled classroom. And the registrar's office, the classrooms that they manage, kind of think about it's the classrooms like in main quad and surrounding main quad, so like STLC, Lathrop. The reason why it's recommended that you don't request a registrar classroom those first 2 weeks is because the registrar's office first priority is academic classes and midterms and finals, anything that is class related. So this is called priority room scheduling. This is when the registrar's office is assigning classrooms to like professors and for the quarter's classes. So that is kind of the first priority. And then once that the registrar's office has scheduled all of those classes, those midterms, those office hours, then they are able to start reviewing and processing other room requests for events such as a student organization event or even like a campus department event. So there's not a particular date that students can start are asked to start requesting rooms for the following quarter. But at the bottom of this graphic where it says the general completion time of PRS meaning the priority room scheduling for each quarter, it's recommended that for the autumn quarter or for the fall quarter, you are requesting stuff around September, and that for winter quarter, you don't start requesting stuff until December because they have not even assigned classes yet. So uh, you should be requesting stuff on like a quarter by quarter basis.
Yes, very important things to note when booking registrar classrooms is that they're very serious about their 5 business days deadline. So if you want a registrar classroom, it must be requested at least 5 business days in advance. No exceptions and no wiggle room. Anything that's submitted after those 5 days will either not be processed or rejected. Um, Something else to note is that you cannot have food or drinks in any events or meetings happening in university classrooms. It is also, as Taylor mentioned, sort of quarter by quarter. So if we're in the fall, you can't be requesting classrooms for the winter or the spring. And in the fall, winter, you cannot request for spring, and in spring, you can only request for spring. And finally, requests are final. So once you make the request, it is made. And yeah, you can go back, edit it, cancel it. But in the case of emergencies, feel free to reach out. Um, there we have the university classroom request form, which is where you're going to go ahead and make that request for a classroom. Uh, we're going to go ahead and head to the link just to give you an idea. It's linked on the slides, or you can find it on the student server service website under resources, but we'll also share the slides, as Taylor mentioned, to make it more accessible. And you can find it right there. Just as you scroll down, uh, just know that you have to use this form. You cannot use 25 Live directly to make a request for the university classroom. Do not make duplicate requests, only submit one request, and do not request multiple locations if you only need one room. We'll go ahead and show you how to request flexible spaces where if one space is not available, you can request another. But if you need a space, just only request one space. So over here, this is how the form kind of functions. You can go ahead and filter down your locations to only university classrooms with events allowed. Taylor, can you take us back to the form, please?
Yes.
Yeah, so when you scroll down, it's right over there, and you can filter down to only those spaces, those around 140 classrooms where you can host events. Um, You also can hover over the name of the room and it will tell you the details of the room, whether and as well as some photos, which can be helpful when you're determining what the appropriate space is. If you need t like a guaranteed spot, um, like you can't have your event rejected for one reason or another, just go ahead and make sure that you are flexible with your location. And you can do that right there if you toggle that button and say yes, and just give them as much information as you can so they can be most helpful for you. To reassign you to a different room, you can go ahead and tell them sort of what you're looking for, two whiteboards, 15 chairs at least, etc. And they will help you find a better place. And in the comments section, you can go ahead and indicate if you need more than one room, which is right over there.
Great. Yes. And we really encourage you to be flexible with your location assignment by clicking yes if you can give information, right? Like we need a room in main quad or we need a room with 20 people. If the original room that you requested is not available, we're able to easily find an alternative room. Whereas if you click no that your location's not flexible, if that room's not available, your request will most likely just be denied. So definitely click this if you want a kind of like backup room. Okay, so next we're going to kind of talk about what type of gatherings can happen in a registrar room. And then after we define what these gatherings are, what is required for you. This is something new that both the Office of Student Engagement and the Registrar's Office worked on this summer to hopefully make things a little bit easier for groups that are kind of having small gatherings with just their student organization. So that is what we are calling a simple meeting. So a simple meeting must fit all of the criteria in this bubble. It needs to be under 25 people, so 24 or less. It should only be current students, faculty, or staff, and no external guests are allowed. So if this is just an internal gathering of your student orgs or even like a Stanford professor, there's no like external company representative or external guests, and it's again under 25 people, so 24 or less, that is what we are going to define as a simple meeting. And we'll talk about this in the next slide, but a simple meeting does not need to be registered on Cardinal Engage. You just need to find a venue. And if you happen to use a registrar room, you would just need to fill out that registrar room request. In the same sense, you do want to keep requesting it 5 business days in advance. The second this event starts to either in this kind of like left side of this bubble that says event, once it starts being either more than 20, it's 25 people or more, or even like let's say it's under 25 people, but you have an external guest now coming. Now you're kind of in the territory of like an event. Some other factors that could trigger an event is like if you're using contracts, if it's multiple days, if you're using multiple rooms, if you're having minors at your event. That is when now you not only need to request a room, you also need to register it on Cardinal Engage. And again, we'll go more in depth on each of these terms, but I just want to go over each definition. And then we have a major event, and there are these factors on the right side that says like over 100 people, sound and noise consideration, high profile guest speakers, large venues, marches, rallies, runs, races, or walks. These are all factors that now trigger what we define as a major event. And a major event that is being put on by a student org must meet with an OSE advisor. So you could reach out to our email student engagement at stanford.edu if you need to meet with an advisor. And then the last kind of type of gathering, the last one to the right, which is a party. This is not something that the Office of Student Engagement oversees. We do not approve parties, but we do want to put this definition there. So if you're having an event with alcohol or like a party in a row house, which some student organizations do have, you will need to submit that with the super office. They have a party form on their website, and it will be linked at on our website at the end. But now that we kind of have these terms defined, we want to highlight what is required for when you have these gatherings. So if you're having a simple meeting, which again, 24 people or less, and current students, staff, and faculty, then you do not need to submit this on Cardinal Engage. You only need to submit that university classroom request form. So when you go on the university classroom request form, there's even a question that says, what type of event is this? And then you have the option of putting like simple meeting. You would also need to pick a room that fits that capacity. So you couldn't say you're having a simple meeting and then having 100-person classroom, because now that's no longer a simple meeting. But if you are having a simple meeting defined by our definition, all you need to do is submit that classroom request form. If you now are having an event, which means there's an external guest now there, or maybe it's getting more than that 24 limit, or you're having contracts, that's when you have to both submit the form on the university classroom form and you need to submit a Cardinal Engage form. Because just to kind of reiterate what was said in the beginning, OSE doesn't review and approve venues. So we are approving the event to take place and the activities to happen, but we're not approving the venue. So when you're on Cardinal Engage submitting your event, we want to know the location, but we are more approving like what's taking place, but we want to make sure you're also getting your room approved. And then again, for major events, if you are having a major event, now at the bottom, there's like 3 requirements. You should be meeting with an OSE advisor. You should be filling out that classroom request form, and then you should also be submitting it on Cardinal Engage. So now we'll get over to now what happens after you filled out your form.
Yeah, so as soon as you have your event, sort of your campus classroom, university classroom form filled out, and you do whatever you need to, whether that is put it on Cardinal Engage or not, you will be able to see sort of what the status on your request for the classroom is by going back on 25 Live, selecting object and making sure it's event, typing in the name of your event, and then you'll get sort of what we see over here, this block of a table where under state, you can see whether it was confirmed, tentative, or rejected. I mean, denied. Those are the 3 things that could possibly pop up. When it comes up as tentative, that means that it's not been processed yet and it's in the queue, meaning that they just need you to be more patient and they'll get to you as soon as they could. Confirm, meaning it's all good. The room has been reserved and assigned to you, your club, and your event. And denied, unfortunately, is going to be that there's one of the reasons, which we'll talk about in just a second, that caused your event not to be, or your classroom request not to be approved. Those could look like one of the following. Um, there's a violation of the university classrooms use policy in the activity or items involved with your event. There is no room that matches the specified details that you provided, which is why we again recommend you be flexible and you just provide them with as much information as you could so that they can help you find a better space if the specific space you want is not available. Um, the request did not adhere to submission timeline. Again, going back to those strict 5 business days in advance, as well as sort of like the Cardinal Engage element of that as well, making sure you have your event on Cardinal Engage if you need to. And finally, the request is occurring in the end of quarter period, which again, is sort of like the week before finals, where people should be studying, and you can kind of get that sort of date up on the university policy website. Um,
So yeah,
and
the
usually,
last day to host an event this quarter is December 1st, and then the end quarter period will start the day after.
yes, and usually in terms of weeks, that's usually the first day of week 10.
Great. Thank you. So just to kind of summarize, if you are needing a registrar scheduled classroom, you should be using their new form, which is on their website, that's titled University Classroom Request Form. Again, we'll send out this PowerPoint that has this link. If you are a group that uses classrooms a lot, I would encourage you to bookmark this page. That way, you can just go to it and then request the classroom space. And again, this form is for registered classrooms. So there might be other venue spaces on campus that aren't managed by the registrar's office. You're not going to find them on this form. You're going to have to follow the appropriate venues policy. But at least for classrooms, it's this. And then again, if you're having a simple meeting, which is 24 people or less and no non-Stanford people, then all you need to do is fill out that form. Whereas if you're having an event or major event, you need to fill out the classroom form and a Cardinal Engage. So at the end of this PowerPoint, which we'll be sending, we actually have some important links. So we have the university classroom request form. We have the link to take you to Cardinal Engage. And our office also created some tutorial videos on how to fill out the form. So if you click on this video, it's a quick like 3-minute video on how to actually fill out the form. We also have a quick video on how to fill out an event submission on Cardinal Engage. We have those definitions we talked about, right? Simple meeting, events, major events. We have some frequently asked questions for the classroom request, which we actually went over today. Some of the questions are like, can you have food or drinks? No. How far in advance should I submit a request? 5 business days. And then we have that end quarter period information so that you know when the last day you can host an event. But other than that, that is kind of the new way that student organizations should be requesting classroom spaces. If you have officers in your group that will be requesting space this year, I encourage you to share this PowerPoint with them, and we'll have a recording later on our website. But that is all.